The Clone Wars movie is, to be completely honest, 3 episodes of a TV show crammed together into a film. A lot of people already know the story behind this movie, but for those who don't, here is why the film exists. Dave Filoni was prepping to make the first series of a Star Wars TV show, which was called Star Wars The Clone Wars. He made 3 episodes of the show, written out and animated, and then George Lucas came to him and decided he would like it to be a film. And when you have the budget for a fairly small TV show, 3 episodes of said show, and the order to make a movie, you get Star Wars The Clone Wars. Today I'll be looking at this movie in depth to see why it's failed and if a Clone Wars film could actually work. So the plot of this film is literally just a meh arc from the TV show, but it's way worse here because it doesn't work as a cohesive plot. You see, if you're watching the Clone Wars show, one episode has a first act, a second act, and a third act. And if you put 3 episodes together, you get no less than 9 acts. That is not at all acceptable for a film. It means a narrative can't flow properly because there is no way you can have a cohesive and tightly paced story with 9 separate acts. However, let's look past this and see if the plot is actually good enough to warrant this. The short answer is no. The plot of this film is definitely one of the lesser plots of the show. To start with, there is a MacGuffin in the story. MacGuffin plots are a mixed bag, but these episodes' MacGuffin plot is definitely one of the lesser ones I've personally seen. The first problem is said MacGuffin is Jabba the Hutt's son. Yes, Jabba had a son. Why was it never mentioned in Return of the Jedi or any other foreign media after the story? I don't know. It's not like they just included it for the recognition of the character because they couldn't think of any new characters to bring in and needed someone for toilet humour. No, that's definitely not it. Yes. Speaking of toilet humour, this film has plenty. I know for the first 2 or so seasons of the show, it was made mostly for kids, but they could have at least tried some actually funny jokes for the older demographic. But they don't. Now that we're done about talking about Jabba's son, let's talk about why he's important. So Count Dooku, as the narrator, tells us at the beginning of the film that has kidnapped Jabba's son. Meanwhile, over the battle between droids and clones, Anakin is given the apprentice Ahsoka Tano. Or Ashoka, I'm not really sure how to pronounce it actually, but anyway. Now I know she gets better in later episodes of the show, but she is really annoying here. Any scene with her is almost unbearable, and I really don't like how she tries to upstage Rex in the film. Anyway, after Anakin is assigned a Padawan, she, him, and Obi-Wan devise a plan to defeat the droid army, and it works. And then Anakin and Ahsoka get a transmission, which is the cliffhanger to the next episode. Next act. Act 2 is a lot worse than the first in many ways. First of all, the action in the sequence is way clunkier than the last, and you can just tell they had spent all their money on the first episode, or rather sequence, apparently. Now, while the action isn't quite good, it does at least have it, unlike the third part, which I'll get into in a second, but anyway, they save Jabba's son from the Separatists, and we are introduced to Ventress, who is one of the better parts of the film, I would say. Then Count Dooku appears with the footage of Anakin saving the baby, which he twists to make it look like Anakin is kidnapping the baby and shows it to Jabba. Jabba believes him and moves against the Jedi. They get the baby and make their way to Jabba's palace to give it back to him, and the episode, or rather act, ends. Now, if you thought this couldn't get any worse for the final part, you were wrong, because since they had run out of any resemblance of budget, there are scenes where I'm almost certain they just forgot to render this theatrically released film. But seriously though, this part of the film is so boring that I almost fell asleep. Nothing happens until the end, where there is a brief lightsaber duel between Anakin and Dooku, which is awful by the way, and another fight between Obi-Wan and Ventress, which is a bit better, but still not great. Then the film ends with Jabba changing his mind and everyone lives happily ever after at the end. So overall, the plot of this film is split, disconnected, and squished together to create a Frankenstein's monster of a film. This film has a lot of characters, the main protagonists being Obi-Wan, Anakin, Ahsoka, and Rex, and the main antagonists being Ventress and Count Dooku, as well as Zero the Hutt, I guess. I literally just remembered he was in the movie. I'll start with Anakin, as for all intents and purposes, he is the main character of the film. In this film, he has a slither of an arc, but he mostly just gets a generic action hero kind of thing the whole time. The bit of an arc he got was when he came around to the idea of like an apprentice. His character isn't poorly written per se, but is just bland and generic. But I understand we have to get this Anakin to later have the great one that comes later in the show. Ahsoka, on the other hand, has an annoying personality, and while yes, you can remember her character, if you don't remember her in a good way from the film though. While I'm aware that she is a way better character in the later episodes of the show, she's just really annoying, and to be honest, is my least favourite character of the film. The worst scene in the entire film, in my opinion, is the scene where she's trying to upstage Rex by saying how she outranks him, even though he's much more military experience and expertise than her. Speaking of Rex, let's talk about him next. Rex in this film is definitely one of the better characters, mostly due to the voice performance. You get the sense from his voice that he has been through many battles and is a hardened soldier, but the animation sadly doesn't support that because the animation is too bad to convey that to the audience. The final protagonist I'll be talking about is Obi-Wan Kenobi, who's just kind of fine. I mean, I can't really think of too many flaws of his character, besides the animation, and he acts practically the same as he did throughout the prequels. Now to the villains. There are two main villains in this film that I'll be talking about, and yes, I am Zero the Hutt is also. I know the Zero the Hutt is also a villain from this film, but I really don't want to talk about him ever, so we'll leave him out. Some would say that Ventress is the main villain of the film, but while I would argue Dooku is, I'll start with her anyway. Surprisingly enough, this is actually a pretty good, solid introduction to the villain. I like her here because she's not as annoying as Ahsoka, and is an interesting and sly character that steals every scene she's in. She's definitely the best part about this film. However, Dooku isn't as good, I would argue, because while he's nowhere near as bad as Ahsoka, I don't think he's as good a character without Christopher Lee's great on-screen performance. While he does apply good voice acting, I wouldn't say he's as good as he could have been. Anyway, while he's nowhere near as bad as Ahsoka, I don't think he is as good a character without Christopher Lee's great on-screen performance. And to be completely blunt about it, he isn't that interesting in the film. To give credit where credit is due, though, there are some episodes in the show later down the line that deal with the character incredibly well and build on his initial intrigue. Overall, the characters are a mixed bunch, but mostly fine. It is common knowledge that the animation of this film is extremely dire. This is mostly because the people who created the film were given the budget for a TV show. Another thing to blame is the time period the show was created in, which is 2008. At that time, there had been some stunning animation work, yet these were all done with high budget and a lot of people were working on the team. So since this film only had an $8 million budget, which to put in context, Jaws 3 had over twice that budget, and that film looks appalling. But budget wasn't the only thing making the animation so dire. There is also the fact the animation was made way quicker than it should have been for 2008 film, which means they could only do the bare minimum to make the animation just about watchable. Overall, the animation is horrible and is the worst example of Star Wars animation I think I've ever seen. Overall, this movie is definitely the worst theatrically released Star Wars film, by far. Even though I would definitely argue that it is still better than the holiday special, which is obvious. All other theatrically released Star Wars films, even though a lot of them I dislike, I would never utterly refuse to watch them again. This one, I would because it's that bad. Even the lesser Star Wars films, such as Rise of Skywalker, are still fun to watch because of their great special effects and brisk pacing. And no other Star Wars film, in my opinion, is this boring. I'll give this movie a 2.1 out of 10. It's awful and all, but it still isn't the worst film ever made or anything like that. Ventress is 100% the best part, but the voice acting is decent as well, and there are occasionally some resemblance of a good idea in there. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll be doing some more Doctor Who content coming up soon, and the Shatterpoint and Revenge of the Sith review should be coming out soon enough. Anyway, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.